What's going on, Descendants? It's your boy Shimmy, and I'm bringing you guys my first build video. This build video is going to be on Freyna. Now, if you play Warframe, she's very similar to your toxic character Siren, where she spreads poison from enemy to enemy. Now we're going to be talking about her builds and abilities, and we're going to be showcasing all that stuff for you today. Without further ado, let's get right into the showcase. So this is Freyna. She's going to be your toxic character. We're going to be talking about 3 different builds today. One's going to be your basic Contagion build. There's going to be your bossing build. This is going to be your build for bossing. And then there's going to be a second Contagion build. When we get to the second Contagion build, I'll explain this a little bit more. But to start off, this is going to be Freyna. So she has 4 abilities. There's your Venom Trauma, Defense Mechanism, and Putrid Venom, along with your 4, which is a unique weapon. This is called Venom Baptism. You're not going to make too much use of this on your 2 Contagion builds. Your 2 Contagion builds are going to be more focused on your Venom Trauma, as well as your Defense Mechanism, although you can use this as well. Now I'll showcase what each of these abilities do, and explain them as best I can. So first we're going to talk about her 1, which is the Venom Trauma. This is going to be one of your primary primary abilities when using Contagion. So basically it's going to leave a pool of venom down, where when the enemies are affected by it, or if they step in that pool, they will receive a debuff called Contagion. Basically what Contagion does, Contagion makes it so that if that enemy dies, it will explode and pass poison on to any nearby enemies. I can't really showcase her 2, but basically what her 2 is, it's called Defense Mechanism. So what's going to happen is you're going to wrap your body in Plague Body Armor. This is going to be a toxic shell around Freyna. That's going to make it so that if melee characters hit you, or if you get shot by range attacks, those enemies will receive Contagion. And once again, those enemies that have Contagion, when they die, they will explode, spreading poison to any nearby enemies. Now we're going to talk about her 3. Basically what her 3 does, this is another pool of venom. Now this one actually does more damage than your 1, however there is a drawback, and that drawback is that it cannot proc Contagion. So if enemies are standing in that, unlike your 1, they will not receive Contagion if you use your 3. But there is a good thing about this. So I'm just going to get these guys back out here real quick. If you use your 1 and your 3, the damage does indeed stack. So any enemies that have Contagion on them, when they're affected by your 3, they will also, if the 3 kills them, it will also proc Contagion as well. So you can also stack the damage and double up for more damage. Now we're going to talk about her 4. So basically this, you're not going to have to worry about this too much in your Contagion builds. However, if you do want to use it, you can. There's nothing stopping you from using this ult. Now the ult does also proc Contagion as well. As long as you hit 1 enemy, they will receive Contagion, as you can see a symbol above their head. And when that enemy dies, they will explode with poison, passing that poison on to anybody else nearby. Now that's the abilities. We're going to get into the build. So now we're going to talk about her first build, which I call Contagion 1. It's going to be built around the Contagion mod, which can be dropped from Dead Bride on hard mode. Now if you're having trouble fighting that boss and Freyna is your main, I do have a bossing build that I will go over with you that should be able to help you get that mod really easily. But the main things you want to have for this build, your first Contagion build, is obviously the Contagion mod. A sub module to increase your slots. You can have anything here. I'm using multi-maneuvering because I like to get my grapple hook back fast. You have time distribution. This is going to decrease your cooldown by 14.3% at max and increase your max HP by 52.4%. So this is going to help you get those abilities back faster, along with survivability. Then you're going to have tech specialist. This is going to increase your tech skill power modifier by 76.1%. Now tech, as you can see here, this is a tech ability, as well as your Venom Trauma and your Putrid Venom. So your 1, 3, and 4 are all tech, so this will increase the damage of all those. Then you want to have skill expansion. Skill expansion, it's not mandatory, but it is good to have to increase the radius of your poison. so that you have more of a radius when dropping the poison on the ground, so you affect more people with Contagion, and when they die, they might affect people outside of the radius and give them poison, which will help with the AoE and crowd control situations. You want to have increased HP. This is completely up to you. I just think it's good to have good survivability when running this build, because this is a hard mode build, so if you're doing missions and stuff, this will be very useful. Good survivability. Then you have Focus on Toxic. Focus on Toxic is going to help increase the toxic power, or sorry, your toxic ability powers, and also decrease your skill cooldown by 6.1%. Then you also want to have Nimble Fingers. This is going to decrease your cooldown by 25.6%. This is going to be the main cooldown perk that's going to actually get your abilities back faster. So as you can see, when I use my 1, I get it back pretty fast. That pretty much applies to anything here except for my 4. My 3, that also does take a little bit to come back, but it does come back pretty fast. But as long as you have the cooldown, you shouldn't have to worry about that, because by the time that runs out, you should have another one on the ready to go. So now you have HP Amplification. This is going to be the last module for this build. And this is going to increase your max HP by 161.4%, but it's going to take away your max shield by 27.6%. Now, in my personal opinion, I do not think you need shield, because shield is pretty weak in comparison to health. So you should probably focus more on your health. Shield is a very situational thing and should only be used on characters that require shield, such as Kyle, who I will have a build for in the future. Now, I'm pretty sure there's other characters that use shield as well, but I'm not too familiar with those characters just yet. Now we're going to move on to the bossing build. Now this is going to be your bossing build. So this is going to be the build that'll get you through most of the bosses in the game on hard mode. Now, as you can see, same thing. This doesn't have Contagion. You want to have a sub module. And your first perk, you're going to want to have Skill Concentration. Skill crit hit damage is going to be increased. This is going to increase the damage you do when you hit criticals. This is going to be vital to the build. You're going to want to have Tech Specialist again to increase the power of your tech abilities. Then you want to have Front Lines. This is going to increase your skill damage some more, and also increase your skill crit rate. Then you want to have Skill Insight. This is going to be the main module that increases your skill hit rate. Then you want to have Focus on Toxic. This is going to increase your toxic abilities, damage by 77.2%, and decrease your cooldown as well. Then you want to have Time Distribution again to decrease your cooldown a little bit more and increase your max HP as well. Then you want to have increased max HP, and then Skill Extension to increase the duration. Now, this bossing build is really good to take out bosses, but there is one very crucial thing to note, is that this is going to be focused around your 4. Now, your 4 is going to scale, so the ammo in your 4, is going to scale based off how much ammo you have in your primary weapon, or whatever weapon you have in your hand at the time. Now, for me, it's Fallen Hope, so I'm going to try to get as much rounds in the magazine as possible. Not that it's mandatory, but if you want to get more shots off with your ultimate and do more damage, it is important that you increase the rounds in the magazine. Now, another thing to note too is your reactors and external components. These also do help out with your ability damage as well. So as you can see, I have a Toxic Mechanic Reactor. This one is going to scale based on my Fallen Hope. So once I have Fallen Hope equipped, it'll increase all the stats. As you can see, skill boost ratio, toxic skill power boost ratio, tech skill boost ratio, and then for my substats I have skill effect range and skill crit damage. So this is really good for my bossing build, and it'll be good for the Contagion 2 build, which I'll show you and I'll explain why it's good for that build as well. Now for your components, so far I wasn't able to pick up max HP on these 3 components here. And I'm actually not entirely sure if you can, because I have killed this boss a lot of times, the Swamp Walker, to get this set to drop. And these 3 items here specifically, I haven't been able to see max HP drop on any of them so far. But I'm still currently farming, And if I do see it, I will update the build video eventually because it's not completely done yet, but it will do for now. But if you guys are having better luck than me, you want to try to build as much HP as possible. So if you're wondering the type of damage that this bossing build can output, I'll have a clip here now that I will show you guys of how much damage I did. Alright, so as you can see, I killed Pyromaniac on hard, and I did 34 million damage. Now that's what the bossing build is capable of doing, but let's get on to Contagion number 2. And now we're going to talk about our last build, which is going to be the Contagion 2 build. Now this build is also based around the Contagion, but this is going to be a little different from the first Contagion build what we had. So this one's going to be a little bit more focused on crit damage. Only reason why this one is different than the first Contagion build is because we're trying to make use of all the slots that we have here. And as you can see, I have 6 catalysts formed into my Freyna, and she is also energy activated as well. So this build, Contagion 2, is going to make use of all 6 of the Forma slots that I have, or catalyst slots. Sorry if I say Forma, I'm very used to Warframe, but bear with me. So yeah, this is going to make use of all 6 of your catalyst slots, starting with Nimble Fingers to decrease your cooldown so you get your abilities back faster once again. Skill Insight to increase your critical hit rate again, and Skill Concentration to increase the crit damage. Skill Extension to increase the duration. Time Distribution to decrease cooldown and increase your health. Focus on Toxic to increase your toxic damage and skill cooldown. And increased HP to build your survivability so you have more health to survive hits. Now, the reason why I said this is good for the second Contagion build as well is because I have the skill effect range, which will increase the radius of my 1 and 3, which will help out with how many people I can affect with Contagion. And it also has skill crit hit damage as well, so whenever those abilities, any of my abilities, hit a crit, this will also help boost the damage that those crits actually do. Now I'm just going to show you real quick what this build would look like in action. This guy was a little bit out of the radius, but as you can see, once the Contagion started to proc and pass on to other enemies, it started to damage them as well. I'm just gonna get rid of him real quick. But yeah, it's the second Contagion build. That one's gonna be focused more around your crit damage and how much crit you can deal. But in my personal opinion, I do think the Contagion 1 build is better. The only reason why I have a second Contagion build is so that you can make use of all the catalysts that you have here. Now, one thing to note, as a Freyna player, you do not have to copy the way I catalyst my Freyna here. You can catalyst your Freyna to your liking. However, it is good to have a reference of what your catalyst should look like, if that makes sense. But yeah, that concludes the 3 builds that I have for Freyna. I'm currently working on an Ajax build as well, so as soon as I get that done, I'll have an Ajax build video out for you guys. Until then, it's been your boy Shemmy, and happy hunting!